300 yards, keep right to continue towards Tons Lane, A355. Keep right.
Today, for vehicles with 2-litre engines and under, subject to vehicle check, T's and C's, eligibility and exclusions apply. Volkswagen Finance.
30 million people around the world are just like me.
I value being able to
Easily build an investment portfolio.
I value knowing my investment.
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto the M4 slip road to London, Heathrow Airport. In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4. Continue on M4 for 5 miles.
who has been battling COVID for some time now. You'll hear the Sun has this as its front page, as I say. 11,000-mile trip of hope is the Sun's splash front page headline. Kate's joining me later in the show. She and obviously Derek went to Mexico to see to get some medical help for what's called groundbreaking trials. Kate's with me later in the show. Right, let's pick up on events that we are seeing sadly play out in Ukraine. Tina in Archway. Tina, good morning. Your reaction? How concerned are you?
Good morning. Just a question. May I ask, in your opinion, what's the difference when NATO, well, US, let's say, broke up Iraq? Iraq exists nominally, and you were supporting the Kurdish people. You promised a lot, but you still created, the region like Donetsk over there. Any breakup of the country, it is a tragedy. I full-heartedly support Russia, but for me it was actually a personal tragedy when Georgia lost two regions because idiot Saakashvili and Zelensky, he was a comedian.
Right.
What he done to Ukraine.
You're talking about I think you're talking about the Ukrainian president now, aren't you?
Zelensky, exactly.
Yes, okay. And you're also talking, are you talking about, is it South Ossetia? Is this what you're talking about in Georgia?
South Ossetia and Abkhazia, Saakashvili, who was trained in the West, he was studying in the West.
Okay,
He was
so just to clarify, did you support that action in Georgia, and do you support the action last night in the Donbass?
I was bewildered. Russia has to do what they have to do because they were asking for 2 decades. Do not bring the NATO. It's not only, again, nominally being. You bring the guns, you bring the different range of the missiles. He explained yesterday, I'm a Russian speaker. He explained yesterday.
Can I ask, you don't have to answer this, but are you Russian by birth?
No, I'm from Azerbaijan, but
You're
my
from Azerbaijan.
ethnicity.
Can I just ask?
My ethnicity from the Russian Federation. Yes.
Okay. Lastly, do you not see Putin as the aggressor here, as the aggressor?
Absolutely not.
Putting 125,000 men on the borders and massing tanks,
Better than your guns. We saw what you did with the other countries. Thank you very much.
All right, okay, strong views.
In 2 miles, at junction 4B, exit towards M3, M23.
This morning, which is the so-called Freedom Day. Prime Minister overruling his health secretary, it's believed, as he announced the end of free coronavirus testing, told the nation it's time to treat the virus like flu, handing responsibility, of course, to us. Here's a little of what he said in the House of Commons yesterday.
It is time that we got our confidence back. We don't need laws to compel people to be considerate to others. We can rely on that sense of responsibility towards one another.
And then later in the day, although it's not yet confirmed, was it the end of the Three Musketeers, those press conferences that we've watched for years now, virtually, featuring the Prime Minister and Messrs Valence and Whitty?
It is the day when all the efforts of the last 2 years finally enabled us to protect ourselves whilst restoring our liberties in full. And after 2 of the darkest, grimmest years in our peacetime history, I do believe this is a moment of pride for our nation and a source of hope for all that we can achieve in the years to come.
So farewell Johnson, Whitty and Valence. Sounds like an upmarket firm of estate agents, doesn't it? But has it been too long coming? John Caldwell is philanthropist, businessman, founder of Phones for You, and has spoken candidly down the months and indeed years over this. John, morning to you. Is it too fast, too soon? Should have happened earlier. What's your view, John? Morning.
Well, I think probably it's about the right time, although I think there have been lots of rules that have been completely incorrectly put in place. But I think the problem though now, and I do absolutely agree with what the Prime Minister's done here, but the problem is that that responsibility now falls upon the employees and the employers to make sensible decisions. And it's a difficult decision because if you've just got very mild symptoms of something, and you go to work as you would normally do, you might be spreading Omicron to a vulnerable employee who actually will die of it. And that's the negative side of it, but we do have to free up civil liberties and we do have to get on with life as normal, and there'll always be some horrible disease that kills people. So I do agree absolutely, but I do...
In a quarter of a mile, at junction 4B, exit towards M3, M23.
That some folk will have to pay £5 for a test. Shouldn't they still be getting them free, John?
Well, it is a huge cost to the economy, and we don't get tests for other illnesses. In fact, over the last 2 years, there's a lot of people that have developed stage 3, stage 4 cancer as a result of all the focus being rightfully on COVID, but it's given huge problems to the rest of the nation in other illnesses. So I think we have to invest the money where we believe it's going to be most effective to give the best quality of life for the most number of people.
Your outlook for the economy.
Exit at junction 4B, then keep right at the fork.
When Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland joins us.
Well, I think the economy will begin to prosper again, but there's a number. That's too long a question for this interview. Actually, I'd be intending to answer. So, but what I would say is, of course, with what's happened overnight with Putin,
keep right at the fork.
That's a way more worrying situation, because we really, as the West, have to put massive sanctions on Russia now, and if we do that, it's going to damage every economy, and some more than others. So worrying times ahead, not just for world peace, but
continue on M25 south for 1.5 miles.
Grateful as ever for your time, John. Thank you, John Caldwell, philanthropist, businessman, founder of Phones for You. We're looking at that aspect, by the way, later in the show as regards the end of testing. Free testing for those with symptoms, gone. Access to sick pay from day one, gone. The need to self-isolate if positive, gone. Too much too soon? Your views later in the show. I think for many it is time, surely, to try and get the country moving again. Although, of course, some parts of the country are still mopping up after Storm Franklin. To York, Mike Appleyard has a shop on the high street.
Just devastated, just stressed, of course, worried, anxious, just all the usual emotions that we went through in 2015. Things were just on the up, of course, with the lockdowns easing, and then we're hit with this.
More on that after this latest news headlines. You're listening to Breakfast with me, Nick Ferrari, here on LBC. The time is 7:31. The news is with Thomas Watts.
President Putin has ordered troops into eastern Ukraine after recognizing 2 pro-Russian regions as independent. The US has warned the latest escalation of the crisis could trigger an imminent full-scale conflict. Moscow is facing further sanctions from the UK, US and EU in response to the latest movement of its forces. Boris Johnson is leading a crisis meeting of ministers and senior officials to decide the severity of Britain's measures. And health groups have voiced concern over the scaling back of free coronavirus testing in England. The NHS Confederation says frontline staff in the health service must have continued access to testing kits. The weather, heavy rain moving southeast from northern parts of the UK.
In half a mile, at junction 14, use the left 2 lanes to take the A3113 exit to Heathrow Airport.
Imagine you in a nice comfy seat, with your hands behind your head, taking in the views, instead of taking on the road, maybe even taking a nap. That's the bliss of getting
use the left 2 lanes to exit at junction 14, then keep right.
Book your train journey via avantywestcoast.co.uk and we'll take you there. Avanti
Keep
West
right.
Coast. Feel good travel.
Continue for half a mile.
Whether you're searching for record...
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto Airport Way, A3113. quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the second exit onto Southern Perimeter Road. Exit the roundabout onto Southern Perimeter Road. In 300 yards, at Western Perimeter Road roundabout, take the second exit and stay on Southern Perimeter Road. Exit the roundabout onto Southern Perimeter Road. Continue on Southern Perimeter Road for 1.5 miles.
To require firms to advance the interests of society and the environment and deliver for shareholders at the same time, maybe not so good an idea. What she says is, these things can, must and should go hand in hand, but businesses have to have their own agendas. They have to make it work for them. So really interesting comments from her.
Danny, thanks. We'll talk around the same time tomorrow. Danny Houston's with AJ Bell.
LBC Business Update.
With Direct Line Landlord Insurance. Trusted by over 250,000 landlords.
quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the third exit onto Beacon Road. Exit the roundabout onto Beacon Road. In 100 yards, at the roundabout, take the second exit onto Stanwell Road. Exit the roundabout onto Stanwell Road. In half a mile, turn right onto Great Southwest Road, A30. Turn right onto Great Southwest Road, A30. In a quarter of a mile, at Clockhouse Roundabout, take the first exit onto Staines Road, A315. In 300 yards, at the roundabout, continue straight to stay on Staines Road, A315.